Sal Berry.
I hear that and I just think this is where the streets have no name. Right, like the beginning of that song.
And Tim Parish.
18,000, not 100. That's a 1 and an 8 followed by 3 zeros.
I gotta find a different line of work because I can't afford any of this stuff.
You need to go get yourself a 7980 O-Peachy uncut sheet.
This is the Puck Junk Podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Puck Junk Podcast. I'm Sal Berry. Along with me is Tim Parish, a.k.a. The Real DFG on Twitter. And today we're going to talk about the Hockey Hall of Fame class of 2019. We'll talk a little bit of hockey cards, and we're going to talk a little bit about the happenings going on around the world of hockey. So, Tim, how are you this fine day?
I am wonderful this fine day.
Wonderful this fine day.
Yes. And what a fine day it is.
What a wonderful day it is, too. It's like it was George Carlin, fine and dandy. He's like
fine
people.
And dandy.
He said he sometimes he was fine but not dandy, and sometimes he was dandy but not fine. But he just really wanted to be fine and dandy on the same day.
My day gets better as soon as 5 o'clock hits. Then it's like the best day.
Happy hour.
Prior to that, it kind of sucks.
Or just punch out of work and a little Tim time.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So let's not much about hockey cards this week. I know Upper Deck Series 1 came out. I haven't picked up any yet. I'm going to be going to a show this weekend. I'll probably grab some. I'll talk more about that show in a little bit. As far as game dated moments for week 6, so we have cards 16, 17, and 18. Card number 16 is Zdeno Chara's 1500th NHL game. Card 17, Lightning sweep the Sabres in the Global Series. And card number 18, Connor McDavid records 400th career point. If you're wanting to buy any of those cards, go to upperdeckepack.com. You have to purchase a pack of cards on ePack, and then that will unlock the ability for you to buy these other cards. Neither Tim nor I are really collecting these, so we don't really have much to say about that. However, Topps Now, which has kind of been a little passion project of mine, the Topps Now hockey stickers. So for week 7, Corey Perry, Leon Draisaitl, Brad Marchand, Jack Eichel, Kirby Dach, Andrei Svechnikov, Morgan Frost, Marc-Andre Fleury, and Steve Stamkos are the lineup of stickers. As far as last week, which was Topps Now week 6, the print run was 846 packs, and that was another week with a chase insert. That one had a chase insert of Connor McDavid that was designed to look like a 60-61 Topps hockey card. Now I'm going to tell you something shocking and surprising about week 6. You ready?
I'm ready.
I forgot to order a pack of stickers that week.
Oh, no.
I went to do it, and I got, the thing was I was doing a wait and see because it was an every 3 weeks. So it was week 6. So it was a chase sticker week. So I wanted to see what the other stickers were going to be that week. And if it was going to be like a lot of really good players, then I was going to probably buy 5 packs like I did for week 3 and try to get that chase Connor McDavid. And if it was going to be like a weaker group, then I was going to only buy 1. But I forgot to buy when I sat down to buy the pack, it was sold out. I had missed it by minutes. I just wasn't even thinking, because I was doing it on Thursday, and I just blew it.
Oh no.
Yeah,
That's not good.
Yeah, so there goes my
You're gonna have holes in your sticker album.
Well, okay, so here's a couple of things. So the first thing I did was I went to eBay and I said, of course somebody is buying these and pre-selling them, and they're probably going to buy like 100 packs and try to get as many Chase Connor McDavids as they can. So I actually bought from somebody. Now they don't have the stickers yet, so I don't have the stickers yet. But instead of paying $7.49 plus tax, which comes out to just under $8 for 9 stickers, I paid this person $5.25, including shipping, for those 9 stickers. So as soon as he gets them, he will send them to me. So it'll take a little longer, but whatever. Still, after I did that, I said, okay, but I still am not going to be eligible to get those All-Star stickers if you buy between week 1 and the All-Star week. then you get the All-Star sticker set. And I'm like, oh no.
Because you have to be
So,
registered as having purchased them, right?
right, because I didn't purchase that week.
I got you.
So through Topps. So I emailed Topps and their customer service. I emailed Topps customer service, and I just explained what happened. And I said, I just want to be eligible for the All-Star stickers. Can you just pretend like I bought a week 6-pack? Because I am like all in on this set, right? Like I want to do this set, but I missed a week, right? Well, it's been almost a week and they haven't replied to me. So
Huh.
there's
Big,
Topps customer.
big shock there.
Yeah, it ranks right up there with Panini's customer service and my redemption card that took like 4 years to get or whatever. Um, but
Well,
oh,
if you
go ahead.
miss them going forward, I can tell you this.
Yeah,
They're already starting to hit ComC.
really.
So with people's getting their shipments, they've already been sending them in.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know. What does it work out to for a pack?
It's like $1 a sticker.
It's $1 a sticker. Okay. Most of them, well, a lot of them are anywhere from $1.50 to $2, except for like the Caco one and the Cody
Right.
Glass one and the Jack Hughes one. Those
Hmm.
ones are more.
Well,
But yeah, so I imagine just like the game dated moments people have cashed out on and put into their ComC accounts, I imagine these will eventually trickle their way over there too. So
so I did get the sticker album, and I finally had a chance to open it and look at it. And I will and the week 1 pack, and I'll tell you that the stickers are very nice. According to the text on the Topps website, the stickers are printed in premium sticker technology, as they call it. I mean, that's literally what they say, premium sticker technology. They're nice stickers, though. They're almost like hardback stickers, not quite. But they are really, they look like the design is good. They're just smaller than cards. I haven't peeled and stuck any of them in yet. So I got
don't
that.
do it. It's a trap.
It's a trap, right?
Yes,
Um, you cannot unstick what you stick, right? Like,
exactly right.
so, then what, that actually came out really wrong. Um, so, um, then I got my week 3 shipment, which was 5 packs, and 1 pack had the Kako Bowman style card. So out of 5 packs, 1 of them had it. The one's at the bottom of the pack, so whoever's packing them out at the factory when they're just doing this, they could look and say, okay, this one has the Chase sticker, because they're numbered like C1, C2, C3 for Chase. So I did get one out of 5 packs had a Chase sticker in the Bowman style of Kako.
At least you got
But
one.
yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. It's a little smaller than a card, but it's cool. It's neat. Even though I'm not really a
Uh,
fan of the Bowman design.
what does the back look like? Flip
Oh,
that
it's
around so I can see it.
literally just a sticker back. I mean, that's all it is just a sticker back.
Okay, with a
Yeah,
bunch of fine print. I
bunch of
gotcha.
fine print, NHL, NHLPA, blah 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 blah. But now here's the other thing. So the Chase stickers, there's actually a page for them in the album,
Oh,
which
really?
pisses me off because now they're not really. Excuse me, they're Chase stickers, but they're not like bonuses. You need them if you want to fill every spot in the book. You
Yeah.
need them. So now that's annoying. And then on top of that, the All-Star sticker set and the Stanley Cup sticker set that will come, those are the incentives for you for buying them every week. There's only 3 stickers for each thing. So I can't see that All-Star one selling for a heck of a lot of money. And I probably wouldn't be surprised if Topps made it available for purchase uh, because if you don't buy them every week, how do you? I mean, it's like it's okay to say, hey, you bought them every week. Here's this bonus set. Thank you. But the people who buy them almost every week, it's like, okay, so how do I get these stickers? Like, you literally put spots for them in the book.
Yeah.
So I don't know about that. Like that I find that a little annoying. I kind of have a feeling, though, that they're probably not going to be that hard to pick up. I mean, again, they're stickers, and stickers are the redheaded stepchild of card collecting. So,
Well, once the newness wears off and all of that kind of stuff, I
yeah.
think you'll probably be able to track them down.
Yeah. So,
I know they were, Topps was up at the,
the expo, the fall expo.
Yeah, they were up at the expo, like giving out, supposedly giving out free packs of stickers, like the week 1 packs, as well as
Really?
the albums to
Oh, that's
various
cool.
people. That's what I heard.
Okay, so yeah, so those are gonna find their way around. Just because they sell 800 packs or 600 packs doesn't necessarily mean that that's as many as they're gonna produce. I
Well,
mean,
that's the thing. That made it interesting to me because when we were talking a few weeks ago when they first started with week 1, and then when week 2 came out, we looked back at week 1 and saw, okay, they sold X. Well,
right.
if they have a bunch of packs that they can just give out to people, were those part of the ones considered to be sold, or are those additional?
I don't
So is
know.
that 1,400 and whatever it was count from week 1 really 2,000 instead of 1,400? I don't
No,
know.
you know what? You're right. That's a good point. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Unless they're different, and then if they're different, why is there no record of them being different?
Right.
Or did they stamp them as, Sports Card Expo exclusives, or I don't know. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I think what's tricky about this is that, like, with Topps Now cards, and I don't own any of them, but it seems like you really just pick and choose the ones you want to buy because they bounce around from sports and other subjects. Sorry, sports, but different sports.
Right. It's not
So
like this where you're locked in and you have to keep buying each week or whatever. You just get what you get.
right, right, and so I could see, like, if I'm like, it's kind of like game dated moments, but maybe not so much like that's even like a sequential set. And Topps Now cards are more like, oh, okay, I like this player, I'll buy it. Or they're talking about soccer this week, and I like soccer, so I'll buy this card. Sure. But yeah, with the sticker set, see, I think it's hard then, like, when you make almost 1,500 packs of week 1, and then when you're getting down to only like 480 packs of like week whatever, I mean, do you really just stop it there, or do you make a few more? I mean, I understand that they say that's what the print run is, so that's what they should respect. But this probably wouldn't be the first time a company didn't do that.
Well, and at the same time, if it does get down to that, like we're predicting slash not predicting, um, do those later week issues then become, okay, week 1 you can find these for $1. Week 30, a base card or a base sticker is going to cost you $30 if you can find it on the secondary market, just
Right.
because of the supposed scarcity of it. And then
Yeah.
come to find out they show up at some national or expo show or regional, like the East Coast National or the big Chicago Spectacular or one of these shows, and start handing stuff out. Like, here you go, here you go. Wait a minute,
Yeah.
I thought these were sold. I guess if you're not stamping them with serial numbers, you can pretty much say whatever you want.
That's true. So, speaking of shows, so this weekend is the Chicago Sports Spectacular. It's actually in the suburb of Rosemont. It's going to be at the Donald E. Stevens Convention Center, November 22nd to 24th. I will be selling at that show. I will be splitting a booth with another seller. His eBay store is Vintage Graphs. This guy that I've known for years. He sells on eBay. He sells at a lot of shows. He's really into vintage hockey memorabilia. So I'm going to be splitting booth space with him. I'm going to be selling Puck Junk T-shirts. If you the shirts that you've seen at shop.puckjunk.com, got a couple different ones that have hockey wrapper designs, and also couple that are like beer league, rec league hockey shirts. I'm also going to be unveiling a new shirt, not on the website yet, that I'm going to be selling at the show this weekend, and then I'll eventually put those on the site.
Ooh,
Yeah, surprise, right? So
limited
if
edition.
not necessarily limited. They're not numbered or serial numbered or anything, but it's just something that I just got the shipment in, and I don't have the time to put them on the website. So I'm going to take them to the show, sell them at the show, but then next week I'll put them on the website. So if you're not able to make it to the show, definitely go to shop.puckjunk.com and sign up for the newsletter so you'll get new product announcements. And if you do come to the show, I'm not sure what booth number I'm at. I think it's like, he said he thinks it's like number 30 or something. It's going to be closer to the side where they have the autographs, like closer to that half of the show, like one of the first few aisles, not the other side all the way by the bathrooms, with the side closer to where you get in. So, come in, say hi. I'll be wearing one of my brightly colored Puck Junk Wrapper t-shirts. It's going to be a first for me. I'm going to go to a show and not spend any money.
Nice.
So,
Those shows are always a fun time.
Yeah, they are, and I like it. And I mean, it's how you and I got to know each other, and it's how you and I got to know like Justin, and there was Nick, and a couple other people that we got to know through the years, and a lot of the dealers and stuff that we know. So yeah, it is a fun time. But honestly, I liked selling at shows in the '90s, and I tried doing a show like 9 years ago, and it was a bomb, and I didn't look back. I said, all right, I'm out. I can't do this. It's too much money, too much work. And it's like I had to work really hard to make back my table. The difference this time is that I'm selling different stuff. I'm selling stuff that's unique, and I'm selling, well, my shirts that are unique, and also the price point is a little bit higher than like a $2 or $3 card. I mean, I remember having like a Brian Bickle redemption rookie, and I think I had it at like $350 or something. And some guy looked at me and he's like, "Is this the best you can do?" I'm like, and it was like, actually, it was probably like a $6 or $7 card, and I think I just priced it. Well, I mean, that was back when Bickle was like a promising young player with the Blackhawks, and it was a redemption rookie, and I thought it was a fair price, but it was just like, oh, come on, dude, $350, or maybe it was $3, and it was I don't know. It's just it's hard when you have like $2 worth of cards, and the person wants to know if you could do better than the $2, and it gets a little disheartening. So I gotta set.
But that's the game from being on the other side too. Yeah, that's kind of the game.
Nah, but
I don't ever get into those discussions with dealers though over, oh, it's $3. Will you take $1? I don't ever do that.
Okay, you know what?
If it's $100, will you take 85? That's different.
Right, because it's how much, how sometimes it's
that's a quarter box. Can we make it a 20-cent box?
Yeah, let's make it a nickel box.
Yeah. No.
I think, okay, so what was it? I remember like one time I was at a show, and somebody had it was an 85-86 Topps hockey set. It was missing Patrick Waugh, which is, that's a big deal. That's the big card. I had a Waugh Topps rookie card already. So I said, oh, is that a complete set? He says it's missing the Patrick Waugh card. And I said, oh, well, yeah, that's kind of the big one. He goes, yeah, I know. He said, but otherwise it's complete. It's in mint shape. It's got the Lemieux second-year card, unmarked checklist. And I'm like, how much? And he's like, $60. And I thought about it. I said, would you take 50? Because in my mind, it's $100 set, and the Topps Waugh is about a $50 rookie card. And he said, yeah, sure. Because to me, that made sense. Because if it was like $100 with the Waugh, I'd be like, no problem. But with minus the Waugh, I'm like, all right. And okay, that's a little different. But I'll tell you this, at the National, somebody had something for $3, and I picked it up. I had talked to this dealer before. We kind of had a little bit of a rapport. I picked it up and I said, I know this is in the $3 box. I said, but I really cannot pay more than $1 for this. Will you let it go for $1? And it was like a I think it was a 3-card strip of like, I want to say they were classic promo cards or something like that. Yeah. And I would have felt dirty paying $3 for that. I think it should have been a quarter. To me, that's a quarter box item, because it's just like,
Usually those
okay,
things are so banged up, you don't even want them for that.
this one was a little banged up, but I liked it because it had like some sell sheet information on it, like
Oh,
coming
okay.
out this month and blah blah blah. And so I like that sort of promotional stuff. And so I said, I know it's a $3 card, but or $3 item, but would you let it go for $1? And he said, like he smiled and said, but it's in the $3 box. I say, I know, and I literally said, but I'd feel dirty spending more than $1 on this. And he said, okay. And he's like, yeah, I remember getting that back in the National 1992 or something. They were passing them out at the classic booth or whatever. And I said, well, this is going right into a page and into a binder and into my collection. Thank you. So,
Yeah.
because I can't break the bank on stupid stuff like that. It's like if it's like somebody trying to sell like a Menon Rayum promo card for $20 and you go, come on, we love Menon, but this is a quarter card. If it's an autographed card, then it's obviously worth a lot more than that. And no disrespect there, but I'm just saying, if
Yeah.
it's a classic promo card or something like that, Ball Street price guide or something like that, then I can't spend $1 on that or $2 or whatever ridiculous price they may have cooked up for it years ago.
Speaking of autographs, are you going to partake in any of the many, many guests that are going to be there over the weekend?
No, the only
Because
time I'll pay.
I was going
Yeah,
to
go ahead.
say, I saw that over the 3 days, there's only 3 hockey people. Although Friday, the Dominator's going to be there.
Yeah,
So,
that's tempting because I would love my 91, 92 upper deck rookie card signed by Hasek.
yeah.
That would
Well, I
be
thought
nice.
the interesting thing was, they always promote these shows and they pack them full of Chicago sports people.
Mm-hmm.
So you think back, okay, we're going to have Dominic Hasek here. He played for the Blackhawks. Let's use a Blackhawks Hasek photo as our promo picture. No, they have a picture of him in his Buffalo Sabres
No,
jersey.
because they know they know that if they picture Dominic Hasek in a Blackhawks jersey, it is just going to make me cry.
Oh, so this was geared towards you? Is that what
Yeah,
it was?
they knew
I gotcha.
they knew I'd be triggered.
I
I'd be
gotcha.
triggered. I'd start thinking of Christian Rutu, and I'd start pulling my hair out, and I'd start thinking of that scene in Sudden Death where Van Damme is disguised as the Penguins goalie, and he comes up and he grabs the first player he sees who's wearing a Rutu jersey, and then just
And
punches him
smacks him.
right in the
Yeah.
face. And I go,
Yeah.
yeah, that's for being traded for Dominic Hasek. That's what you get.
Well, he's there Friday, and then on Sunday, Dylan Strome and Calvin DeHaan are going to be there. But other than that,
Nice.
there's no other hockey guests the rest of the time. But the autograph, it's jam packed full of people. Like Friday it's White Sox galore. So if you're a White Sox collector, that's the day to be there. There's also some Bears on the list, but I noticed there's a lot of wrestlers. I don't think I've seen that in the last few shows. There's a
Well,
ton.
I'll tell you this.
The Undertaker's going to be there on Saturday.
The
The
genius. It is
Undertaker.
genius that they are bringing in wrestlers to these shows. Now, I don't think wrestling is a sport. We know it's not a sport.
It's
But
entertainment.
people will argue, "Oh, these guys work as hard as any athlete," and I get it, but it's still scripted. It's like if Ovechkin is on a breakaway and then he like winks to Corey Crawford, and then Crawford knows to dive this way so that Ovechkin can shoot the puck that way. I mean,
I'm pretty sure that is how that works, isn't it?
yeah. Ovi just has to wink and a smile, and the goalie
Anytime
moves. No,
anytime he stands over by the face-off circle and just blasts a shot, it always goes in.
so but I will say this: bringing in wrestlers to these sorts of shows brings in a different demographic, and that is what these card shows need. Is they need more people coming to them. I was waiting in line. I forgot who I was waiting in line for. It was at the National. I was getting something signed for somebody, and I was waiting in line, and there was people lining up for Hulk Hogan, for photos with Hulk Hogan. And these people came in costume. There was a whole family all dressed like Hulk Hogan. They were all dressed like in Hulkamania stuff. There
I
was
bet.
another group of people. They were all dressed like different wrestlers. And they were doing this so that they could get their photo taken with Hulk Hogan, and they were also dressed as wrestlers. And then, they were also getting things signed. Some of them were then getting those photos that were just printed for them signed. And I think at first I kind of laughed, but then I thought about it and I said, no, this is a good thing. This is a good thing because people who really like wrestling can also be casual fans of other sports. And I think that, and so I think that's good. I think it's good to bring more people to shows. And if it's people who
There's
like
definitely a
wrestling,
lot on
yeah,
the list, though. I mean, Greg the Hammer Valentine, you remember that guy?
I don't.
He's going to be there. Jimmy Hart was on the list. Like I said, the Undertaker's supposed to be there. I think one of the Bushwhackers.
Okay,
Um,
my knowledge of wrestling.
Abdullah the Butcher.
No. My knowledge of wrestling is limited to whoever was on a Slurpee cup in the '80s, or whoever was on Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling cartoon, and that was
Oh,
pretty much
jeez.
it.
So if I said the name Rocky Maivia, you wouldn't have any clue who that is.
Nope.
So you know who The Rock is, right?
So that's Rock's dad.
Yeah.
He's also
He's gonna be there signing.
so the Rock didn't fall too far from the Rocky.
Yeah. But Sunday, it's gonna be a happy day there on Sunday.
Oh, why is that?
Because not only can you get the Fonz's autograph, Henry Winkler, but Ralph Malph and Potsy are both going to be there too.
Wow.
So that's the day to go if you're looking for autographs. To get
Unfortunately, the
only
person I'd want an autograph from Happy Days is Pat Morita, and he's long gone.
Yeah, he won't be getting that one, but a lot of football stars going to be there. I mean, it's a pretty good list for just a twice a year regional show. So.
I've never been to the Toronto show, but I understand that this show seems to be as big as a Toronto show, or the other way around. I believe the National is the biggest card show, but then Sports Spectacular, from what dealers have told me, and these are dealers who've been all over North America, they've said that the fall and spring shows in Chicago are second only to the National in size.
Really? Because I know people talk about the they call it the East Coast National all the time, as being a pretty big show as well. But I've only been to the Chicago one. Obviously, the National when it's been in Chicago. I've never been to the Toronto show either, but it's definitely on the bucket list.
Yeah. So, why don't we talk about Hockey Hall of Fame class of 2019? You said you tuned into the induction ceremony on Monday.
I did. I watched the whole thing, plus pre-ceremony events, and listened to a lot of the interviews that were done on NHL radio beforehand.
Okay, hold on a second. I haven't watched the show yet.
Oh, I won't spoil it for you then.
Yeah, well, actually, but you can spoil this one thing for me. Did they all get in?
It was a close call, but yes, they all got in.
They all got in? Okay,
Yeah.
so Zubov got in too?
Yes, he did too.
Okay, good. All right, that's good. All right, I feel better now. Just yeah. So okay.
It started off like, obviously the big thing with the show and the ceremony by itself is, each of the inductees gets up and gives their speech and thanks everybody that's ever done anything for them in their whole entire lives, and the people that kind of paved the way for them to get to where they were. So I was kind of interested to hear some of the speeches. They started off with Jim Rutherford, who was brought in as in the builder category. And for those that may not know who Jim Rutherford is, he's the current GM of the Pittsburgh Penguins. He, after Peter Carmanos picked up the ownership of the Whalers back in '94. Rutherford was part owner, and was put in charge as the GM of the Hartford Whalers. He was the one that was in charge when they moved to Carolina, and kind of set up the team for success going forward and helped them to their Stanley Cup run. And then 4 years after that, their Stanley Cup win, winning the championship there. And then when he took over the job in Pittsburgh, obviously they won back-to-back cups in Pittsburgh too. So he was also a player. A lot of people don't realize he was a player. He was a goaltender. Played in the league for I don't remember how many seasons he was actually in there, but he actually got up and he gave his speech. Believe it or not, obviously being a Penguins fan and everything else, it was kind of cool to see. Mario Lemieux was the one that came out and handed him his plaque and took the picture with him. So it's kind of cool being inducted into the Hall of Fame and getting the plaque handed to you from your boss, I guess. It'd be kind of cool. But I'll tell you what, of all the speeches, his was by far, no offense, the most boring. I mean, it was
Really?
boring. It was very like droned on and on and on, and I was just like, "Come on, Jim, do something here." He tried to crack a couple jokes, and I don't think anybody got it, or they laughed. So that was one of those things where he went on. But something that I noted as we were going through and watching is, traditionally you get guys that get elected into the hall, or girls. And I always go back and look and I'm like, this was a great player. This was, somebody in the top 10 scoring, or this and that and the other. Generally they have like a lot of hobby traction,
Mm-hmm.
especially being in the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
Hockey's a little different though, because you have a lot of, obviously you'll never find out what the criteria is from the Hockey Hall of Fame committee. They'll never tell you. No one ever. It's like one of the biggest secrets is what they use for criteria to bring guys in, and everybody speculates, and you talk about it all the time. Oh, is it games played? Is it goals? Is it points? Is it this and that and the other? And you never really know. Obviously, you want to say it's a combination of everything, but some of these guys have quite a few hockey cards that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them don't. I mean, Rutherford, for instance, he's got like 112 cards that have been made of him. I didn't realize he had that many. I mean, I knew he was a player. His first cards were kind of regional releases back in the early 70s.
The old SO set.
He had an SO set. He also had a marathon one that came out, I think, a year before the SO set, but like his real rookie card, or what's considered his real rookie card, is the 72-73 O-Pee-Chee and Topps. And the thing is, he's now a Hall of Famer. He's been a GM for quite a while. Most people probably, older generations obviously remember him as a player, but you can usually find his Topps or O-Pee-Chee card for $1 or $2, depending on the condition, maybe a little more if it's in better shape. But from a graded standpoint, you don't see many of these selling, because I don't know that he would have been considered a star player. I found like a couple sales of graded versions of his cards that were like $10-$20.
Okay.
So, and high grades are rare, so we're talking those were probably 6s and 7s.
Yeah.
So I imagine the more people get into the Hall of Fame, like lesser known players, if they have cards that are out there, those cards will then all of a sudden surface, because people start digging through boxes and end up finding these things and kind of going from there. But yeah, so he was the first speech, and I don't know. I would rate him on the bottom of the evening of all of the speeches that went through.
Mm-hmm.
Guy Carboneau went in there. Guy's got way more hobby love out there. He's got over 600 cards that exist.
Well, played for the Canadiens, so
yeah,
I mean, that's...
yeah, he's played for Montreal. He's actually the last Montreal captain to hoist the cup, and probably will be for a very long time.
He was the captain in '93.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But he's been eligible for the Hall for like 19 years. But Guy Carboneau, I remember growing up as a kid, anytime the Penguins played Montreal, there was always a situation where there was this guy out there on the ice that would dive in front of people's shots.
You mean there was a
And
gee out there who would dive in,
exactly. Yeah,
not a
exactly. There
guy?
was a gee, not a guy. This guy it was crazy. You didn't see that back then. I mean, he was the number one player in his craft. Obviously the best defensive forward that probably arguably ever, uh, and especially during that time period when he was coming up. You know, the guy got 3 Selke trophies, 2 Stanley Cups. You know, I think he had the one with the Habs, and then he got one with Dallas later on.
Dallas.
Um, but it was interesting because if you look at the reason why Montreal won that cup in '93 is because the Great One was kept off the scoreboard for the bulk of the Stanley Cup Finals. Now you're talking Gretzky had 33 points going into the finals. So on all of the playoffs up to that point, he already had 33 points in the playoffs.
Crazy.
So this guy was going to destroy you. And after game 1, he had even more because he scored a goal and had 4 points in just that game.
Mm-hmm.
And after the game was over, um, you know, Guy went to his coach and he said, "Put me on Gretzky.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be on Gretzky for the rest of the finals."
Mm-hmm.
And I think was it Jacques Demers was the coach at the time, and he's like, "Okay," and he did. And after that, Gretzky was shut down from that
Yeah.
point on. I mean, I think he had 1 goal and 2 assists the rest of the playoffs, and you know, the Kings went down in flames. So, but yeah, so I mean, he's one of the best defensive forwards that ever played the game. He doesn't really get much hobby love. You know, his rookie card was an 83, 84.
Yeah.
There was no tops. It was only OPG. Tops quit printing at that
But
time.
there was
So
a ton of OPG that, like a lot of 82, 83, and 83, 84 OPG were produced in higher quantities, and U.S. card
sure,
shops were actually buying them. So that's why, I mean, I remember when I started collecting in the late 80s, collecting hockey, 83, 84, and 82, 83 OPG cards were pretty easy to find at card shops. Like they'd have those 2 years, but they wouldn't really have any OPG before that, or just a few here and there. And they wouldn't really have a lot of OPG after that until like maybe 89, 90. So yeah, so I mean, it's a good card, but it's obviously it's kind of it's overproduced as far
yeah,
as like 80s
and you
80s OPG.
and you'll see that kind of reflected in card prices for it. Because I mean, you know, if we're going down this path and you are a Hall of Fame collector and you're looking for that kind of thing, you know, you can find that card raw grade, you know, for a few bucks. 5 to 10 bucks would be the max I would see on that.
Mm-hmm.
Graded, I mean, even graded, they're not really that high. Um, 8s go for 20 to 25, 9s at 35 to 40,
Mm-hmm.
and I haven't seen a grade 10, but again, you're talking a mid, you know, early 80s period of just OPG, and some of those cards are just so badly miscut
Mm-hmm.
and off center, and there's a lot of that. So I don't know that there's even a 10 out there. I didn't check any of the registries or not to see it, but so I think, you know, he's been greatly ignored, um, probably because he doesn't have the offensive numbers that maybe some guys ahead of him would.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that he's being recognized as being, you know, probably the best defensive forward, at least of his time, if not arguably, you know, in the top, probably in the top 3, definitely top 5 of all
Mm-hmm.
time. I don't know. Does that open the door for others like that were like him going forward? You think maybe like Rod Brindamore, or I mean, if he goes in, what about Yuri Letnin from Dallas? I mean, that was his job. That's what he did.
I
They don't
think
win
what
the cup without him.
I think what's I don't know I don't have an answer off the top of my head, but I do think about something that you said earlier that was interesting. You said there is no known formula for how players get into the Hockey Hall of Fame. It just happens. We don't know what the selection committee says or does or thinks, but we know that over time, the committee changes. People leave, other people come on. And I think what happens is you get a fresh perspective from new people. And then I think another thing is that people look back. It's like anything. Like when you're in the moment, you don't think about it. And when you look back at something, you say, oh, yeah, you know what? That was pretty good. Now, somebody like Yager, when he retires, Jaromir Yager, that's a no-brainer. We know that he's got the numbers. You can just look at the stat sheet and say, yeah, he was a great player. He should be in the Hall of Fame as soon as he's eligible. And a lot of the guys playing now, Crosby, Ovechkin, yeah, you know that they should be there. But then you're going to look, there's going to be other players where you look at, say, for instance, Jonathan Toews, right? Jonathan Toews is a damn good player, but is he Hall of Fame worthy? I love the Blackhawks. I love Toews. I don't know. I mean, he's won the Selke Trophy. He's been MVP. He's won a lot of awards. Yeah, he'll probably make the Hall of Fame. But
He's got the cups too.
He's got the cups. But when I think of somebody like Crosby, like no comparison between the two. And I'll always choose for the Blackhawks over the Penguins. But in that case, no, Crosby is an obvious lock for the Hall of Fame. But I think when you look back 10 years later or 20 years later, you have this different perspective. You can kind of, everybody from that era is retired by then. You can kind of compare apples to apples and apples to oranges and then say, yeah, you know what? This guy actually had a really good career. He should be in the Hall of Fame. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing if the player gets inducted later on. The point is that somebody or the committee felt like they were worthy, and usually there's a lot of fans who are going to agree with them. And you know what? Unless you're Gretzky, Lemieux, or Howe, there's going to be some people who disagree.
Well, and
maybe not a lot, but
yeah,
always just a few.
And that's the argument that comes up: is this, the Hall of Fame is meant for the greatest ever? Are we just turning this into the Hall of Mediocre?
Yeah, but what's great? Okay, so it's easy to say, oh, Pavel Bure, he was great because he scored a lot of goals and he was fast, although he had some not so great years at the end.
Yeah, but Bure was pretty good.
But he was pretty damn good, right?
Yeah.
Or like Alex McGillney, right? Same thing. He was.
Well, there's that argument because McGillney's not in there. So does he deserve to be?
Well, I don't know. I mean, apparently not. I mean, I've been lobbying for Jeremy Roenick for years.
And Roenick's name comes up a lot.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And with Carboneau going in, there's always been the thing where, well, it's offense. Well, now all of a sudden, you've given a defensive forward the opportunity to be in the Hall. Does that open the door to the defensive defensemen then? Because look at how many great defensemen there were that weren't goal scorers, but were just plain and simple shut down defensemen. Mm-hmm. Those guys aren't in the Hall. Those guys that made a career out of putting their lives on the line and blocking shots and getting out there and just, totally making the other team non-existent offensively. Those guys don't get the love because they don't show up on the scoreboard.
No,
so I don't know. And should they even be in there? I don't know. I don't know. But I mean, from the standpoint of this particular selection, Carboneau, I'm surprised he didn't get in earlier, but I think that's the thing. He's a defensive player. He was great offensively in juniors and everything else, but once he got to the NHL, they changed his game and they decided to make him kind of a different player. Mm-hmm. So moving on to the other guys that got in. In his speech, he did it both in English and French.
Of course.
So it was kind of back and forth between the two. And I kept asking my wife, "What's he saying? What's he saying?" And she kept yelling at me saying, "I don't speak French." So, but anyway, so Sergei Zubov goes in. Sergei Zubov holds a special place in my heart. Um, if it wasn't for the 1-for-1 trade of Alex Stoyanov from Vancouver for Marcus Naslin, the Zubov trade would have been the worst 1-for-1 trade the Penguins ever made, at least in my lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a guy that was a 5th-round pick by the Rangers, right about the time where all the Russians were getting all the attention and being
Mm-hmm.
scouted and everything else. He got targeted. He was ahead of his time. I mean, here's a guy that played defense like every team in today's NHL wants a defensive player. Zubov was a very offensive minded and very, very, very good on the power play.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
He had a lot of points.
he did. He had a lot. And like I said, I remember him playing for the Penguins for a minute. They picked him up from the Rangers. He had won a cup with the Rangers. And in fact, he's one of the first Russians that was Russian born and Russian trained
Mm-hmm.
to have his name etched on the cup.
Mm-hmm.
But the Penguins picked him up for Ulf Samuelsson and Luke Robitaille. We traded both of those guys for him and Peter Nedved. And I thought he was going to be a Penguin for a long time because of the way he played. I mean, he was a power play captain, and he made the Penguins the best power play in the league when he came to them, and it didn't take long. And he did the same thing in New York when he was there. And then they go and trade him straight up for Kevin Hatcher because they decided we don't need skill. We've got Lemieux, we've got Yager, we've got Francis, we've got, Thomas Sandstrom, we've got Peter Nedved. All these guys are scoring, tons and tons of points. 600, in fact, during that year between those 5 guys,
Wow.
6 guys. They didn't need Zubov. He was like the 6th or 7th scorer on the team at the time. And so they were like, we need to get bigger and tougher, even though they traded Samuelsson in the first place to get him. So they decided to trade for Kevin Hatcher straight up to the Stars. And, well, then you move on from history there and you see he wins another cup in Dallas. So, and he didn't want to get traded either. And I remember that story because it was in the paper and he told his agent to void the trade because how could there be how did he quote it? It was something like hockey in Texas. That was his thing. Because he had no clue that there could actually be hockey in Texas. And so I was hoping he would have mentioned it, and he did. During his speech, he brought that up, being traded from Pittsburgh to Dallas, and how he flat out told his agent, nope, I'm not going. He's like, you need to cancel this trade or figure out what to do. So,
but he did. He went.
But he went, and there it is. And again, here's a guy that, from a Hall of Fame standpoint, he's kind of a unique player. This is a offensive-minded defenseman that played in a time where you didn't really have many of those types of guys. And in today's NHL, this is what teams build themselves around, are offensive defensemen. And so he was, a little ahead of his time. Now, he gets in the Hall. If you're looking at offense, though, he has fewer points than Doug Wilson.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started.
Who also won a Norris Trophy. So,
I know.
But Doug Wilson's not in there. He's got less points than Sergei Gonchar, who's not in the Hall. So does that make their door open now? I don't know. It's like the Guy Carboneau argument. Are defensive players now eligible? I don't know. Do we start looking at these other guys because of this? But I think his impact in other ways was a bigger measurement. That's kind of why he's in there. Leadership and all that kind of stuff kind of helped. And, he helped the Stars win the cup as well as the Rangers. So
I think another
Olympic gold medalist too. You can't shake a stick at that either. So
I think another thing, kind of based on when you say, does this open the door? I think, and we can make a whole episode about players that aren't in the Hall but should be.
Who
But I
should
think
be in and who shouldn't? Yeah.
yeah, but or no, just players who should be and who aren't. Um, and I think with guys like Wilson and Roenick, there's grudges against them, and I think that eventually those grudges will die off or go away. Either the people who have them that's keeping them out will either retire, die, move on, go away, something. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
and so that's something. But I mean, that's just my thought on that. So yeah, I do think that some people that we think are snubs or who are overlooked will definitely get another look as the committee changes. So who do you want to talk about next? We got 3 down, 3 to go.
Well, we can talk. Let's talk about Big Ned here. So Vaclav Nedomansky goes in, right?
Yes.
When I saw his name on the list, I was like, who? Who's this guy? I didn't really know anything about this guy prior to his Hall knock, other than I remember somebody talking at some point in time about Big Ned being a scout for the Golden Knights.
Yep.
And I didn't know who Big Ned was. I didn't really know his significance. And when I looked into it, it kind of shocked me that he wasn't already in the Hall of Fame.
Why were you shocked?
Because of his story. And I hoped he would have told his story when he got up there and gave his speech. And sure enough, he did. In fact, he told his entire life story in his thick Czechoslovakian accent.
Awesome.
So it
awesome.
You had to really follow it, but he really delved into, the plight of, being from Czechoslovakia in a time where the Soviet Union came in and basically just took over and, forced forced a lot of things on people. He played for the Czechoslovakian, I want to say the Czechoslovakian national team.
Yes.
He won 9 medals with them. Mm-hmm. 9 medals in Olympic competition. That's crazy. But it came to a point where he became the first European, like Eastern European player to defect to North America.
Mm-hmm.
He was the first. He paved the way for that, I guess, deluge that was to come later. Mm-hmm. And I was unaware of his story, and he kind of went into it, and there's some craziness that goes on with all of that stuff. That's like real life spy stuff,
mm-hmm.
hiding in people's trunks and escaping across borders and, being smuggled here and do this and do that. It's kind of crazy when you actually get into some of the details of what some of these guys had to go through just to come here to have a better life, or at least a better opportunity at playing a game that they grew up playing and that they love.
Mm-hmm.
He got here and played for the WHA Toronto Toros. He was 30 years old at the time. By the time he actually made it to the NHL, which I also found out that he was but the first trade between not only teams, but 2 organizations. The WHA traded
leagues.
Yeah, two different leagues. The a WHA player was traded to the NHL. So he got traded to Detroit. And he became a 33-year-old rookie on the Detroit Red Wings. So it's an amazing story. So if you don't know about him, which I'm sure you know about him, but if there's listeners that don't know about him, look his story up and read about it. It's very fascinating as to, how he got here and his whole experience and everything else. And, he defected from his country. When they found out he left, they stripped his citizenship and destroyed all of his records,
Wow.
like his Olympic records and his playing records. He was the leading goal scorer and assists and points and everything else in almost every category in their hockey records. And they basically wiped it out and said, nope, no, you're not.
So let me ask you this
That's
question.
crazy.
It's more of an opinion because you're very well researched on this. So just kind of want your opinion. So he's obviously, I mean, I'm looking at his stats, and I know he had some good years with Detroit. Obviously, he was, on the back half of his career by then. He was born in 44, so 54, 64, 74. So he didn't get to the WHA until he was like 30. So,
Right. He was 30 on the Toros, and like I said, he was a 33-year-old rookie on Detroit.
right. So, obviously, he's not getting inducted on his time in the NHL. It's the whole body of work that he's getting inducted on, which they say the NHL should, or excuse me, the Hockey Hall of Fame should not be about merely a player's NHL accolades. It needs to be the whole body of work, which is why there was that argument about Sergei Makarov when everyone was like, oh, Sergei Makarov's in the Hockey Hall of Fame. But he was, yeah, sure, he won Rookie of the Year, but he was 29 and he didn't really have that great of an NHL career. But it's like, yeah, but if you look at like the 10, 12 years before that, all of the above, the whole body of work, then yeah, he deserves to be there. So
Sure.
he deserves to be there. I'm wondering though, like, do you think the Hall of Fame needs to maybe be a little less? There's an IIHF, International Hockey Hall of Fame, right? And then there's a
Correct.
there's a U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame. So
There
I
is.
understand, like the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame, they're going to say this is a really good American player. We're going to put them in the Hall of Fame, right?
I believe the first requirement is you have to be born in the United States.
Right. But for the IIHF, it seems that they obviously they recognize these guys that have like these crazy awesome statistics from international play and European play and stuff like that. So I'm actually looking. I don't think Nedomansky's in the International Hockey Hall of Fame.
And that may very well be.
But I'm wondering, do you see? Okay, so we look at like Guy Carboneau, or we look at like certain players, because honestly, I was a little surprised about Guy Carboneau. But what you say about him, I go, yeah, okay, I could see why he's in the Hockey Hall of Fame, right? Like I understand now, but I'm wondering if a player like if the IIHF should be the Hall of Fame for international accolades only, and the Hockey Hall of Fame should be for, I don't want to say NHL only, but it seems to skew that way a lot.
Well, I think it skews that way simply because, I mean, that's the big show, right?
Right, right.
I mean, look at how many guys that are career minor leaguers that are outstanding playing in the AHL and have
Right.
had amazing careers. But you think they're going to make it into the Hockey Hall of Fame?
No,
Probably not.
no.
Um, you know, Tom Kostopoulos comes to mind. I think he's one of only like two players that played in something like over 500 NHL games and 500 minor league games.
Uh-huh.
So I mean that's an accomplishment, but you know, fat chance he's ever going to be appearing in the Hall of Fame. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, a guy like Nedomansky, he's got all of that national or international play background, and there's many guys in the Hall of Fame like that. And one of the big reasons is it's the Hockey Hall of Fame, not the NHL Hall of Fame.
Right.
So you know, if you're gonna limit it to just NHL players or professional players or just North American players, I think you'd have to change the name or definitely change criteria. The way it is now, I think there's a lot of guys that are in there that saying that you have to have great NHL statistics, well, obviously would disqualify them. But part of that is they've expanded it to builders, which may not be players, but you know, coaches, GMs, owners, things like that, people like that that have done things for the sport. I mean, one of our other entries this year was Jerry York. You
Mm-hmm.
know, Guy's the winningest coach in NCAA hockey history. He's got over 1,100 wins, and he's still coaching. In fact, he missed all the festivities over the weekend to stay back with his team and coach them. He was there for the ceremony, and
Mm-hmm.
he got up and gave his speech, which he was the only one that I don't think his speech was rehearsed. He had
Mm-hmm.
notes, but he just went off the cuff and just went all over the place with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the guy's won 5 NCAA titles. He's Boston College coach right now. He also coached at Bowling Green. He's been to the Frozen Four 12 times. I mean, he's won the Hockey East title 9 times. He's won the
Mm-hmm.
Beanpot 9 times. Here's a guy that his resume is a million miles long. He's not been in the NHL. He's not even coached at a professional level that
Mm-hmm.
I'm aware of. And I don't know that he actually, I mean, he did play hockey at one point, but he didn't play in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
But here's a guy that's well respected, brought in to hockey conversations all the time as an authority on things and somebody's opinion that matters. I mean, hell, when Herb Brooks was trying to pick who he wanted on, the USA men's Olympic team, better known as the Miracle on Ice team, who did he call? He called Jerry York. He's like, hey, come over here and help me figure out who we can put on this team and help me build this roster. So, I mean, obviously the great Herb Brooks relied on him and trusted him for something. And, he's in the Hall of Fame, and he's in the Hall of Fame on the merits of what he's done for hockey, not just pro hockey or NHL hockey or anything else.
Right.
So I have no problem with somebody like that actually making it into the Hall. In Nedomansky's case, he was a pioneer. He paved the way for a lot of people that came in front of him. I mean, look, there would probably be no Jaromir Jagr if it wasn't for Nedomansky.
And let
I
me
mean,
just add this really quick. I mean, there were cases, and I forget which year it was, but I know that if like there was pressure on Czechoslovakia it's almost like they were allowed to be second best to Russia, but if they ever beat Russia in international competition, then Russia would usually tighten its control of the country.
I believe that.
Yeah, so there was, I almost think that like Czechoslovakia would have been a better internet. They were always a threat in the 70s, and Nedomansky won, some medals at the Olympics. But if they were just allowed to be themselves and not like have Russia basically controlling them, and they had their own resources and they weren't, basically under the rule of Russia, and then, it's like they beat Russia and then Russia like puts more troops in their country to
Right.
occupy them more and stuff like that. They would have probably been even better, and
Oh yeah.
Nedomansky would have been better. You know what I mean? Instead of like, well, you could be good, but not better than us. Like we're gonna always, the Czech. I mean, that's why the 1998 victory was so big for the Czech Republic, because they beat Russia to, they beat Russia, and it was just like something that just never would have, 20 years ago would have been like would have been like like an imprisonable offense.
Sure.
Yager
And
would have
this
scored a goal, and his family would go missing the next day.
Well, and I think the same argument can be made for the Soviet Union teams, later on too. If communism never would have fell the way it did and crumbled like it did, you wouldn't have saw all of those great Soviet players defecting, coming to the United States, going
Well,
to
most of them
Canada,
didn't.
going to places like that, and getting out of there so that they could further their careers and actually come and play in the
Well,
NHL and see if they could play.
very few of them defected, actually. Most of those guys that came in that like wave from 89, 90, they were released by their teams. The NHL teams had to pay money to the Russian, I forget the name of it, but basically the Russian Hockey Federation needed the money. So they would sell the players to the NHL teams that own their rights, and then they would also take a percentage of their salary. That's why Larionov up and went to Switzerland, because he hated the fact that Russia was getting part of his salary when he was playing in the NHL. So he went and played in Europe for a couple of years where they couldn't take his salary before coming back and playing for the Red Wings, or taking a part of his salary. So, I mean, as far as defectors go, I mean, Peter Klima defected in '85, which is why he wore number 85, and he was Czech. And then, of course, the not Nedveds, the Stastny brothers, and then you had, and then as far as Russians go, you had McGillney. I mean, that was a big deal, and Fedorov.
Well,
and then but still, I see what you mean. I totally
from a hockey player standpoint, athlete standpoint.
Yep.
Big Ned was the first domino, I think, that fell.
Yes, you are absolutely right.
And it took a little while for more of them to fall, but they eventually did. So if you're going after his cards, he's got 51 of them, but good luck, because prior to the 74-75 O-Pee-Chee WHA set, every card he had from 69 to that year was from either a Swedish or a Finnish set, and there aren't many out there. So if you can find them,
they're probably stuck in a sticker album.
Yeah, they very well could be. So, so finally, I guess there's one left on it, last but not least, and I kind of saved her for last because Hayley Wickenheiser's speech at the ceremony was by far the best.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, she was. The things that she had to say and the way she said it and the way her whole gratitude and everything, to the people that came before her and even to NHL guys and players that she looked up to growing up and everything else, it was outstanding. It was a really, really well put together, well thought out speech. And if you don't watch any of the whole entire show, you can watch hers. I mean, it was really good. In fact, it was so good that she even stopped in the middle of it at the beginning, because when they went to commercial break, she was sitting next to Big Ned in the audience, and he must have mentioned to her that the whole entire time he was up there rambling, and you could see he was getting nervous when he was doing his speech because he started swaying back and forth and stuff. He forgot to thank his wife. So he must have said something to her in the commercial break. So when she was up there talking, she's like, "Oh, by the way, I'm probably not supposed to do this, but can we get Nedomansky back up here? He has a couple more things to say." So he comes up onto the thing, and she stopped her speech in the middle of it and let him talk for like 5 more minutes to thank his wife. And so I thought that was pretty cool. I've never seen something like that happen before. So yeah, so that was cool. But yeah, I mean, her speech was really good. 23-year career in Canadians women's hockey programs.
Crazy.
She retired in 2017, and this was her first year of eligibility for the Hall. So I mean, she went in right off the bat. 4 gold medals, 7 more in the World Championships. I mean, nobody's got that kind of hardware. She played in Finland for a minute. She's the first woman on record to score a point in a men's league in Finland. She was invited and participated in 2 different rookie camps for the Flyers. She's done guest coaching, for Toronto, for Edmonton, and she's even the assistant director of player development for the Maple Leafs right now. And she's going to med school pretty much full time. So,
and she was a softball player.
Yeah. She's done a ton, and she's done a ton to further women's hockey as a sport. And, the fact that she's going in, was she the 7th or 9th woman elected?
I want to say,
I think it might be, it's either 7th or the 9th. Well, Angela James gave her the plaque. Her her plaque.
7th, I think.
7th.
I think so. Because I know. Sorry, I'm bad with remembering who went in what years. But anyway, so Angela James gave her the plaque, which was
Yeah,
appropriate.
yeah. And one of the stories she told about that was, Angela James was like the 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 captain or the veteran, leadership
Yes.
on the first team that she played on, and she was, I think, who was it was talking? Was it Cami Granado? Made mention of the fact that she saw her when she was like 13
Hmm.
playing, and she thought this girl is insane and amazingly good. And you know when she makes it up to like the older squads and eligible, she'll be a force to be reckoned with. Well,
Hmm.
then it was only a couple years later that she goes into camp to train for the national team, and here's this girl who's like 15 years old or something, and it's her. It's
Hmm.
Hayley Wickenheiser playing on a team with like 18, 19-year-old girls, and she was just out there just smoking everybody. um, but a lot of her speech centered around you know wanting to play the game and wanting to play it so bad that she was willing to deal with anything that was dealt to her. So
Hmm.
all of the discrimination and all of the name calling and being made fun of and everything else, she didn't care. She was going to do whatever it took, and
Hmm.
that's kind of what she did. And it was interesting because they showed tons and tons of pictures of her as a kid growing up playing hockey, and every one of those pictures, and because I already knew, if I wouldn't have known better, it looked like a boy in
Hmm.
every picture,
Hmm.
because I mean, that's one thing she said. She had to try to look like a boy so that people would leave her alone.
Right.
She talks about showing up and loving to go to practice, loving to get out there on the ice, but having to show up earlier than everybody else, going and changing in the bathroom because she couldn't go into the locker room with the
Hmm.
boys, and then having to walk out of the bathroom and walk past all of the parents that were snickering and making comments and everything else. And, you know, to hear that, and you think about that, and I think you take a lot of that stuff for granted, especially when you start talking about these players that are the best of the best.
Hmm.
To think of all these things that they actually went through to get to that point, it's kind of, I mean, these are amazing stories that they tell, and I think she painted a really really vivid picture of kind of what she dealt with coming up, and how she got to be where she is today. And I think by far hers was the best speech out of everybody.
Yeah, that is awesome. And the other women, and yeah, she is the seventh. I just did a quick count. Uh, Seventh woman to be inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame, and a lot of them have those stories about wanting to play hockey, and there's not a girls' hockey team, and they had to play on a boys' hockey team, and they would excel, and they'd get singled out, and they'd get picked on, and they'd get made fun of, and they never got to, feel that camaraderie or that experience. I mean, this is kind of like an obtuse example, but like I play I play beer league hockey. I run a pickup game every Monday night, also among other low level hockey players, low to mid level, but most of us are like beginners or like with less than 10 years of experience, somewhere around there. And like the guys will be in one locker room, the guys will be in another locker room because there's so many of us, and then there'll be like maybe one or two women who play in our group, and there'll be, there's like a women's locker room that's really just a glorified bathroom, and most of the time it's just my girlfriend, so she changes by herself, and then she's just like, oh, you guys sound like you're having so much fun in there talking, and so something changed. I got to know some other people and get more people in my hockey group. Now we have like 7 or 8 women coming to our game. We might have like 24 people, and like a third of them now are women. So I have to get them like an actual locker room. And I could just hear down the hall how much fun they're having, just the camaraderie and the talking to, having to getting to do that, and I've played with some women who've insisted on changing with the men because they just say, I like being part of the team. I like being a part of the conversation. And, you know, it's like, obviously we're all adults. We're not staring at each other, or we turn around, or this, that, or the other thing. You know, and I'm not going to get into like if that's right or wrong. It just is. But I think it actually kind of makes me happy that like the one or two women that play in our group now, there's like 7 or 8 of them, and it's a more inclusive environment. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
sure.
It's a more inclusive environment, and I always feel bad when I hear those stories about like, you know, and another thing that like, I mean, my sister and I didn't really play sports growing up, but the thing is that my sister was never told that she couldn't do something because she was a girl. Like when I took karate, my sister also took karate. If my sister wanted to play, like she played tennis and softball in high school, and you know she wasn't told no. But the other thing is like when we were little kids, if I went to buy a Star Wars figure and she wanted a Star Wars figure, she got one too. Or if I would buy a Transformer and she'd pick out a Transformer that she liked too. She wasn't like, oh, you're a girl, you need to play with this Barbie doll. My mom was always like, yeah, if you want a Transformer, cool, pick one out, you know. And and I know this is going to sound really kind of obvious, but that's how it should be. And it's not. And I know it's a lot harder with sports because then you get into like, oh, there's not enough locker rooms. And actually, I'll tell you this. Here's another thing. When the Chicago Blackhawks a couple years ago announced that they were building a practice facility that was going to have 2 full sheets of ice. It's been open for a couple years now. Now it's called Fifth Third Arena or something like that. It used to be MB Arena or MB Ice, whatever. So, but they got bought by Fifth Third. But anyway, they announced we're building this 2-rink facility, and she wrote them a letter, and she said, please make enough locker rooms for this so that the women have a place to change, because I am so tired of changing in a bathroom or in the first aid room or an equipment closet, because you know there might be a hockey class and it's going to be 12 guys and 2 women, and the 2 women are going to be basically be given a glorified closet to train it to change it. And they did. They have a lot of locker rooms at that facility, so they work that into the plan to make sure that there's enough space for everybody. And that's good. I mean, that's good that that's where that's headed. Obviously, it doesn't mean yay, we're all equal now. No, I mean there's still going to be a lot of problems, but yeah, it is a little heartbreaking to hear those kinds of stories. But it's also heartwarming to hear how they overcame them and they succeeded and they thrived, and now they're in the hall.
Well, what's the old saying? What doesn't kill me makes me stronger.
Yeah. So
Yeah, and
what
and
did you?
that's that's kind of the situation you have here. But speaking of, it's a shame. You got to look at her cards. She's got 115 cards that are out there.
Yep.
Hayley Wickenheiser does, and with her first card being in the '94 Classic, it was a women's hockey insert
Yep.
that was all gold foily, and I think I have that sitting here somewhere. But technically, her real rookie card, so to speak, was the '97-'98 Collector's Choice when they did the what was it, like the international play
The Team
subset
Canada,
that was in there.
Team Canada women's national team.
Canada.
Yeah, that set had.
Yeah. So
Did I lose you?
no, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We were being polite. We were waiting for the other one to finish.
Yeah.
It's really visionary how the '94 Classic set had the women of hockey insert set, because that was the year they announced women's hockey is going to be a medal sport in the '98 Olympics. And Classic that year, I mean, Classic was always kind of on board. I mean, they had Manon Rhéaume as a spokesperson. They made cards of her. They made cards of Cami Granado. They made cards of Erin Witten, who was another accomplished female goaltender. Uh, and they they made that women of hockey subset, which was just so visionary for its time. But what, Classic did offbeat stuff like that. But I got to tell you, like maybe in '98, some people might have been like, oh, the women's hockey Canadian team cards in this collector's choice set, these are kind of nice. I get either you were really excited about it or really indifferent about it. But, looking back 20 years later, man, there are some Hall of Famers in that set now. And it's just, I mean, I
There
thought
is.
I thought it was cool back in the day, but it's kind of cool now. Like, you wait a long time and you look back and you go, oh, wow, Angela James is in this set, and, Danielle Goyette, and Hayley Wickenheiser. It's pretty damn cool.
It it is, and the travesty of that whole thing is it comes from an era where, again, that's part of the whole overproduction cycle of cards, and you can find these. Well, you probably can't find them because nobody even bothers to put them anywhere, but if you do, they're in quarter and dime boxes at shows and card shops, around the country. Now, since her hall nod, I've seen singles of that collector's choice one go for about $1 or so, but I mean, honestly, these are like forgotten about, and it's kind of sad, considering here's a person that if she was a guy, she'd be Wayne Gretzky,
Yeah.
because she's literally the Wayne Gretzky of women's hockey, and
Well,
she holds all the records. So
what's funny is, before there was Hayley Wickenheiser, there was Angela James, of course, and I remember it was at it wasn't the National in 2019. It was a National in 2017, but it was a good, I think she was inducted in 09 or 2010 or something around there. I found an Angela James signed card for it was either $2 or $3.
Jeez.
I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, I don't even think the guy knew who it was. He just had a rummage box of hockey autographs for $3 each. And I might have picked out one or two players that I just go, oh, yeah, I know this guy. I think I picked out a Tommy Wingels autograph, and this was before he played for the Blackhawks, just because I knew he was from Chicago. So I'm like, oh, yeah, Tommy Wingels, sure, $3. And I'm like, Angela James? Really? This is in a $3 box? Really? And I was like, to me, that was like one of the finds. I mean, that's like what I like about collecting, when you just find something awesome like that. Because I mean, if that was in the case and said $10, I would have been like, yeah, here's $10. I want that card. She's a Hall of Famer. I mean, we collect the players that we like. We collect the players that we have a connection to. We collect the players that we watched either as a kid or as an adult, but we also collect the players that we admire, because I never saw Maurice Richard play, but I want his cards. You know what I mean? Or I never saw Gordie Howe play, but I would love to have a Gordie Howe rookie card. So, I mean, even though I can't say I'm the most well-versed on women's international hockey, of course I knew who Angela James is, and I would want an autographed card by her, and getting one for $3. And it's just funny because I told my girlfriend about that. She just shook her head. She's like, "Yeah, no respect for women's hockey." And I'm like, "No, but it's getting there. It's there is, but hasn't, like you said, they're all in the quarter boxes right now, and they need to migrate over."
What needs to happen is somebody needs to suck it up and put up the money to actually get this women's hockey league up off the ground again. And that's what needs to happen. And if it's the NHL that needs to step in, then so be it.
So we're getting a little long in the tooth here. So why don't we wrap it up by maybe you want to talk about Don Cherry's new podcast, which is going to compete with the Puck Junk podcast to be the best new podcast of 2019, even though this isn't exactly a new podcast. It just came back after 2 years off. But yeah, Don Cherry and his son and his grandson. I'm assuming his grandson's doing all the technical work.
Yeah, I'm not sure. They didn't really address that too much. I gave it a listen for the first episode just because I'm like, hey, why not? And so he's got the podcast going called The Grapevine. And those that may be familiar with Don Cherry, they used to have a show back in the 80s called The Grapevine, where he would sit down and he would interview players and coaches and whoever he decided to get on the show. So they spent most of the first episode, of course, the first 10, 15 minutes of it was, no, I shouldn't say that long, maybe the first 8 minutes of it, because it's only like 25 minutes long.
That's it?
That's it for the first episode. I don't know if
Okay.
they're going to go longer than that or not, but this one was 25 minutes. He spent a little bit in the beginning talking about being fired, and he basically came out again and said, "Hey, I said what I said, and I stick by what I said. I wanted the opportunity to go on the air and talk about it, and they wanted me to do things that I wasn't willing to do. So, c'est la vie." But anyway, once they got past that, his son basically said that um, the show's going to kind of be centered around just Don telling his stories,
Okay.
making comments about current events in the NHL,
Hmm.
and really they're going to use that as a platform to resurrect the Grapevine episodes from the '80s, and they're going to take clips and things from a lot of those shows
Hmm.
and kind of splice them into these shows, and then comment about them now and have Don kind of elaborate more on them and tell stories. And like we talked about in an episode before, where you said this guy's got a memory like a steel trap and remembers everything and everyone.
Hmm.
That's pretty much what most of this interview was. They replayed an interview he did with Rocket Richard, and then the rest of the show was him just going on and on telling stories of that one led to the next to the next to the next to the next, and that's pretty much what it was. So
Were you
um
entertained?
um I was up to a point, and then he lost me because he just went off on a tangent about stuff, and I couldn't follow his story. It was just all over
Oh,
the place.
hold on. We
So
go off on tangents all the time.
yeah, but at least they have a subject. This he was going it was I don't know what he was talking about. I lost track of what he was even talking about because it was just like, oh, and Billy Smith from blah 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 did this and that and that. Oh, and Joe, you remember Joe? He was that guy that did this, and I mean, it was just bounced from one thing to the next. So yeah, I know it was their first show. I know they were just trying to work out the kinks and obviously figure out what they're going to do going forward. But it was same old Don, just telling speaking his mind and telling his story. So I
So,
don't think it's going to be a coach's corner setup. His little 7-minute rampage on whatever topic was going on in the NHL. I don't think it's going to be that at all. I think it's going to be more nostalgia and you know memories and that kind of thing.
and that's the kind of stuff that I like best from Don Cherry because, when he'd say, "Oh, look at this kid scoring his first NHL goal," well, you look at that, right? And it was like, okay, that's nice, and they'll probably be probably more for the player, like, yeah, Don Cherry gave me a call out or a shout out on his show, and I get that, but I wasn't interested in that because I could see those highlights other times. I liked it when he had an opinion about something that was controversial but hockey related or
Yeah,
I mean, we both, and like I said, we're kind of getting a little long, but I mean, we'd both love to know what you think about Garnet Hathaway's suspension or Matt Calvert's injury, and them not blowing the whistle, or even Mike Babcock getting fired. Um, I want to know what Don thinks of these things, right? And maybe he'll talk about those in his next podcast. But that's the kind of stuff I wanted in Coach's Corner, and I understand he wanted to respect the military, but once he starts getting into politics, yeah, that's when it's like needed to be roped back in. So it's interesting that you say that he's going to basically focus it on telling stories, playing old interviews, and giving his opinions on the NHL. Like that's
that and
kind of
that's
what it
that
should be.
that yeah, that seems to be kind of what the way it's headed. And even during the show, his son kind of said, it, it was in the air. They were gunning for you. You said some things before, and you knew they were gunning for you, and we kind of figured it was going to happen, and so that was that was the catalyst, and it's done. So yeah, I mean, with the Mike Babcock being fired thing being fresh, I'm sure that'll be on his next episode. I would imagine because I'm sure he's got a lot of things to say about that, as
Well, what
many people do.
what do you got to say? Might as well. In for a penny, in for a
What do I
pound.
got to say?
Yeah, and I'll just throw
Well,
out some
I'll
quick
tell you.
stats here. The Leafs were 9-10-4 so far this season. He was partway into the fifth year of an 8-year deal that was paying him $50 million over the 8-year span, or $6.25 million a year, which means that he could not coach the rest of this year and the next 2 years and still make $6.25 million for the rest of this year, the next year, and the year after. Or as Tim famously said a couple of years ago, Mike Babcock could make a house out of money. Not with the buying a house with the money. He could literally build a house with the money
Yes.
that he makes.
And he can. And the crazy part about all this is most of that he's already been given. Most of that contract. So
yeah, he's more than halfway up. But they got to pay him anyway, unless he gets hired by another team. Then that team is going to pay him.
Well, and that's, that's obviously something that will be spoken about in the next few days is where does he go next and what is he going to do and does he want to coach and blah, blah, blah. But, at least in the short term, look, people have been talking about this for weeks. Is he going to stay? Are they going to fire him? What's going to happen? I didn't expect them to fire him today. I thought they would, just not this quickly. Because let's face it, with Kyle Dubas running that team, he was not his coach. I mean, that is not who he wanted as the coach of that team.
Right.
Babcock was not hired by Dubas. He, wasn't brought in there to make some kind of earth-shattering change to the team by Dubas like he wanted to do. He was a leftover from Lou. And once Lou was gone, you knew it was only a matter of time. Because the way Dubas wanted to build a team is he wanted to build it like you see. Fast, young, dynamic players that go out there and put an exciting product on the ice. They may not win, but you're sure going to have fun and because of the guys they got. Look,
I need you to actually say that last part again because you cut out there for a minute. You said young, fast team, how he's building it, and then you cut out.
Fast, exciting team. He built a young, fast, exciting team, and that's great. They may not always win, but you're sure going to have a good time when you go and watch the Leafs play. And that's the product that they're putting on the ice. That's not the product that Mike Babcock coaches. Babcock is set in his ways. He doesn't like line changes that are different than what they practice. He doesn't like mixing things up. He doesn't like playing situational type hockey. He doesn't like taking guys out. He doesn't like subbing people. He doesn't like using backups. He likes to play tight defensive style. Dubas didn't build the team for that. He built it for excitement. So they have self-inflicted salary cap issues because they overpaid, and this is purely my opinion, they overpaid Nylander, they overpaid Marner, they overpaid Matthews. The amount of money that they're giving these guys, the fact that 4 players are taking up $40 million of their salary cap, and they have no D-men on their team, they have no backup goaltenders. I mean, look, how do you expect to win and go into the postseason when you have no points from any of your backup goaltenders? None.
No
you can't
points
win
from
that
your
way.
backup goaltenders?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean, points. Oh, yeah. No points in the standings.
No points in the standings.
Yeah.
All your points are from your starting goaltender. You have to get points from your backups. You have to. And they have none. I mean, the team gave up on them. I mean, it was clear that the team wasn't listening to Babcock anymore. They didn't care. I mean, that was evident. And yeah, I'm a homer and I root for the Penguins, but that game against the Penguins where they put out that rookie goaltender who played in his very first game ever and got shellacked, that was eye-opening because they weren't playing at all in front of him.
You feel bad for that kid.
I felt horrible for him. And I don't feel bad for anybody that gets destroyed by Pittsburgh. And I felt bad for him because the team quit and they just weren't playing. And it's like, okay, do you blame that on Babcock or do you blame that on the team? Or was it some coup that was just designed to get him out of there? I mean, look, Sheldon Keefe, I don't know the guy. I don't know a lot about him other than I know he was Kyle Dubas's guy, and he was his guy from the beginning. They wouldn't have re-upped his contract with the Marlies for 2 more years, like a few months ago, if he wasn't the heir apparent to take over that job.
Right.
They had worked together before, and Grant, this guy's got a great junior hockey record. I mean, it's outstanding. If you pull up, he won five straight championships in the CCHL with the Pembroke Lumberjacks, and then went on. He coached in the Sioux. He had like a 98 wins for them. And with the Marlies, he was like 199 and 89 was his record with the Marlies. Best team in the AHL twice. Been to the playoffs like 9 times. They won their first Calder Cup. I mean, this guy, it's like he can't miss. So of course he was going to be the heir apparent to that job. It was just a matter of time before they got to a point where there could be enough excuses to say, okay, Babcock, bye-bye, you got to go.
I think what's interesting is that you've seen teams that have struggled, that have had coaching changes early on in the year, and then they've turned it around, and then in some cases they've even won the Stanley Cup. So
you mean like the Penguins?
Well, I was actually going to
and
go
the St. Louis Blues?
And I was actually going to go a little bit back further to the Kings when they fired Daryl Sutter.
Okay.
And they hired his replacement, whose name is escaping me right now. But they won the Cup. And then, the Penguins, they fired their coach. They brought in
Mike Babcock?
No, Penguins.
They brought in
Sullivan.
Mike Sullivan.
And then they won the Cup that year.
I was trying to think of the name of the coach they had before that.
And then of course the Blues. It's funny because with the
most
Blues,
recent with the Blues,
right? And so I wondered, does this mean that? Well, it makes you wonder. I mean, obviously, a good coach.
Don't tell me you think Toronto's going to win the Cup now.
Well, I don't know, but I mean, I
they
think
have
what's
no
happening,
defense.
I think they don't have a backup goalie that can stop stuff. I think that a lot. I think now that coaching has become a little bit devalued because now you have 3 examples in the past 10 years where team has fired coach, team has made coaching change, team has won Stanley Cup.
But if the coach loses the locker room, who's to say that that's not the catalyst that spurs winning those guys back and getting them to play together as a team and buy in?
Either way, it's a coaching change that has to happen first. So I'm just saying that it's kind of funny that a lot of times you'd say, okay, I had a mid-season coaching replacement, or sometimes they'd wait till the end of the season, because they just knew. But I feel like it's early enough in the season where they're saying, you know what, we got a lot of time. We're only 25% into the season. We got a lot of time. We could turn things. Look at the Blues last year. Look at how horrible they were, and they fired their coach. And
worst team in hockey halfway through.
Yeah, and then they won the Cup. So I'm not saying that every team is going to say, oh, well, that's the recipe for success. Fire your coach mid-season.
I was just going to say, is that the new offensive speed blueprint?
No, but what I think is that this is saying that if you're going to make a coaching change, do it sooner than later. That's the money that you can. I mean, the money is going to cost the money, but it doesn't count against the salary cap. It's not like it's not like Babcock's salary is counting against the Maple Leaf salary cap. So if they fire him and they still have to pay him, okay, but then they could bring in another. They bring in another coach who they're paying far less, and they start winning, and their fortunes turn around. Then it's worth it. You know what I mean? It's worth it to basically buy out the coach, even though you're firing him and still paying him full price, right?
I think more is going to come out of this as days go by, and we'll start to learn more. I mean, here's the other thing. We were talking about Toronto. We're talking about hockey mecca, where all of the news media is, and it's hard enough, being an NHL coach. It's got to be that much harder to be an NHL coach in Toronto. It has to be, because you're constantly under the spotlight and there's a microphone and a camera in your face, like all the time. And they're always looking for a soundbite. They're always looking for a story. And they're always looking for a reason to put blame on you or someone for why things aren't going the way they are. And even when they are going good, they find things to nitpick. Oh, you're the best team in hockey, but your power play kind of sucks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, oh, you, you're 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 on a 12 game winning streak. Oh, but you haven't scored a shorthanded goal. I mean, it's like dumb stuff like that. And
Yeah, and
the
actually
Toronto
now,
media is fickle.
well, and now I feel really bad because I just realized something. I always complain about how much coverage the Maple Leafs get, and damn it, we just covered the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, well,
And I feel dirty now. So I think we need to end it because I don't want to give any more lip service to a team that just gets so much play. Next week we'll talk about the Arizona Coyotes just to balance things in the hockey universe, just to balance, the stars.
well, the last thing that I will say about this is
Yes.
you now have to update your coach's rookie card list to include Sheldon Keefe.
Oh,
So all of
what?
the
Do you know what his rookie card is? He played
yeah
125 NHL games.
yeah
What?
they're all from 99 2000. So
Oh, the year I
he's
didn't collect.
he's got an SPA, a tops, an upper deck, a black diamond, an MVP, an ovation, a victory, ultimate victory. So
Okay, yeah, I'll have to update my rookie card, my list of hockey
so
rookie cards for the NHL coaches.
you could finally eliminate that one goofy looking Mike Babcock card.
I like that card. I love the fact that Babcock's haircut has not changed in like 30 years.
No,
Like, I wonder if it's
neither
just
has his
sculpted.
coaching style.
I wonder if it's just sculpted on. You know what I mean? Like,
Could be.
it's like, But all right. Well, thank you for listening to the Puck Junk podcast. As I mentioned before, I will be at the Chicago Sports Spectacular this weekend selling hockey T-shirts, maybe some hockey cards and collectibles if I have time to bring some with. And also, if you are interested in any of that stuff, you can go to shop.puckjunk.com. But until then, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you again next week.
For more hockey goodness, follow us on Twitter @PuckJunk.